Good morning and welcome to the morning break. I am Rob Pats. Good to have you here. Of course, watching across the Abundant TV network live. It is Wednesday. For me, the end of my week. And I know I've been teased that it's a great job to work 3 days a week. I do other stuff other than this. But on the network, this is when you see me. Hey, did you catch last night? The Rob and Kristen Show on the network, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We had our Easter serve. We were so blessed to be able to speak on Easter. We recorded it. It was last night's show. Did really well, by the way, in the ratings, which I always check because, I'm a competitive person. I am. I can't help myself. I'm competitive, so I check the ratings. Also salted last night. The women's show did amazing. I can't wait to tell them about that later today. But just been a great day already. I hope it's really awesome wherever you are. And it's just been one of those days. There's so many neat things going on that I want to share. I want to talk about a couple things we talked about, and one of the themes in my show is always travel. I talk a lot about travel. My wife and I love to travel. It's one of our things. One of our loves is to go out and hang out and travel different places. We can spend hours like researching stuff. Actually, if you watched last night, you saw the reference for Mackinac Island, which, by the way, is still so cold up there. I was going to do a looking cam from Mackinac, and it looks so cold. But anyway, this is time of year. Most people are planning. Of course, back in January, we had National Plan Your Vacation Day. Obviously, nobody did that because, according to studies, today is the day that most people start booking their summer vacation. Now, whatever you're planning on doing for summer, I would love to hear. You can always hit us up on the app, find more information there. We would love to hear what you're up to for either a vacation or a road trip vacation. Now, this is interesting. This is what we're going to talk about today. I found this to be really surprising. Over 65% of Americans who are taking a vacation this summer are going to do it via car, which I found interesting because I don't do long road trips. I just don't anymore. I did when I was younger. Goodness, I used to drive like 30 plus hours to go places. Don't do that anymore. Don't feel a desire to do that anymore. Don't have any desire at all to do that any longer. But one of the things I was thinking about, and that ties into one of our sponsors here on the show, is if you're doing road trips, what snacks do you take? Because I think every road trip, if you're taking a road trip, you need to have snacks. My wife and I, we do short road trips. For us, road trip has to be we have a rule. If it's over 5 hours that we have to drive, we fly. So that's our rule. So anything 5 and under, we've got a great trip. We're coming up this year. We love it. It's a great weekend. We go to a place called Columbus, Indiana. If you're not familiar, it's near Louisville, Kentucky. And we drive down there because it's a ministry opportunity for us. We turn it into a long weekend. But for our road trip, we have a couple of necessities. They are things that we need. One, I have to have Reese's peanut butter cups. I have to have coffee. And we usually have some kind of trail mix. Those are our things. That way, my wife, once she's in the vehicle, she wants to get there. That's the bottom line. We're not stopping. We're not doing like lunch somewhere. It's just not happening. It's not going to happen. We'll have dinner when we get there. Just the way things roll. Hey, listen, speaking of snacks, look, it's our My Snackies. It's my-snackies.com. Look in cam. We are in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina today. Looking very warm, even though it says it's only 55. Ever been to Myrtle Beach? If you have, It's a great place. You need to check it out. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, 55 degrees right now. Not bad. The my hyphen snackies looking cam. So that's one thing I wanted to talk about, and travel and those kinds of things. And so, for me, like I said, coffee, one of those things that I need to have. And we have a great sponsor here on the show called 7 Weeks Coffee. Now, listen, you've heard me talk about it a lot, and I'm not going to go over it and over again how great the coffee is, because it is. It's fantastic coffee. It's delicious. It is incredible. It's got a great cause. If you've not heard about 7 Weeks Coffee, they are just incredible. But right now they've got a special, and the ownership there, and we're going to have them on the show, by the way, coming up. But they know me. They know I'm a pastor's kid. So they know I can't keep a secret. So they went, "Hey, Rob, listen, we got this thing, but you can't talk about it. You have to send people to the website." And I'm like, "I need to." I've gone and looked at some great deals, some special things you can only get on the website. So go to 7weekscoffee.com. Go to 7weekscoffee.com. Use the promo code ATV10, by the way, when you check out. That way they know where they're spending their money and what it's doing for them. They've been a great sponsor just a little over a year with us now, and their coffee is amazing. Now, here's my deal. I like a dark roast coffee. I just have. I think it's an evolution when you've had coffee as long as I have, that the evolution is to kind of go to a little stronger, a little bolder coffee. And that's what I do. But let me tell you this, and this is my wife's idea, and it worked out amazing. She got the variety pack, get 4 different flavors. And when you do, make sure you also pick the breakfast blend. I know I talked about this in January. We did the Daniel fast, which meant we had no sugar, which meant I had no creamer. And I used the breakfast blend during the month of January, and it had such a natural, sweet, and fresh taste. It's a great coffee. Check out the folks at 7weekscoffee.com. We are so excited about today's guest, and it's going to be a good day. It's a ministry that I think is underutilized in the church today. We're going to talk about it right after this.
Behind every precious life, there was a choice. Behind every family moment, behind every special memory, there was a choice. A life of joy, a life that is beautifully and wonderfully made. At 7 Weeks Coffee, we are funding the pro-life movement, one cup at a time. Will you let your coffee serve a greater purpose?
Great, folks. It's 7 Weeks Coffee. That's 7weekscoffee.com. Use the promo code ATV10 when you order. It helps them. And they've got some special things on the website. You need to grab them. They've got some cool merch too. Check out the merch. Check out all the stuff. 7weekscoffee.com. Before the break, we talked about road trips. So I'm going to ask our guest, Michelle. Michelle, good to have you here
Hi.
on the show. Michelle, road trip. What's like your must have if you're taking a road trip?
Oh, yeah, I was thinking about that when you were talking. Definitely what we call a fountain pop or fountain soda, gotta have that for sure. And then some kind of like popcorn or chips. And my kids and I always do this when we go on a road trip. So it's something I grew up with, so I can relate for sure.
See, I maybe the reason why I don't like road trips as much. My dad was an evangelist, and we traveled a lot. Like,
Oh,
besides being a pastor, he also was during the summer doing evangelistic work. So I think I've gotten my miles in, and
yeah,
like anything past 6 hours, I'm like,
yeah,
I
no,
I don't want to do it. So do
me
you do
neither.
you follow along with me in my 6 hours?
Oh,
Kind of that
oh, for me, it's like 3 hours. That's it. I don't
Really?
like,
Wow, you are my wife. You are my
yes,
wife. My wife's like, "Do we really could we fly there?" I'm like, "Honey, it's like
exactly.
2.5
Me
hours."
too.
And she's like, "I
Yes.
think we'll fly." And I'm like,
Yeah,
"We can just
that's how
drive.
I
We'll
am
be."
too. I just don't I like road trips if they're short, but No, I don't appreciate long road trips. No.
Hey, Michelle, I want you, and it is a ministry that I think is so important. I want you to kind of give everybody just kind of an overview, and because it's your first time here on our show, won't be the
Mhm.
last. Because I'm really excited about the ministry you have and what you're talking about. Give everybody your story first, and then let's talk about the ministry.
Okay, so it's a very long story, but in a nutshell, um, in on May 23rd, 2020, my husband of 17 years passed away from cancer, and we knew that it was coming, but still, it was very, very hard, and it was COVID, and there was just so much that made it so difficult. And I didn't know a lot of people that were widowed. I knew some, but there were no groups. It also was COVID, but still, even after COVID, there were no groups. I called all the churches and I looked around. When I asked my pastor, he said you could start one. And I was a brand new, 1 or 2 months in. There was no way I was starting a group. And so I saw this huge deficit in the church. I learned from research and diving deeper into this topic that the widows are mentioned 103 times in the Bible, yet so few churches have any ministry or any support. So I was a young widow with 3 teenagers, not really having support. So I found a lot of support online. That's really where I found my people in the beginning. And eventually, when I was feeling better, about a year after my initial grief, I decided to start my own ministry. And it's called Widow Goals, which is widows helping widows not only survive, but thrive. And I decided to just start meeting together. Actually, our very first thing that we did is we had a Mother's Day coffee, at a coffee shop, Mother's Day tea, that's what it was. And I had gifts for the mothers because that can be one of the loneliest holidays when usually it's your husband who actually did everything for you, not the kids. I mean, they made their cute little projects at school, but my husband always did great things for me. So that's a really hard day. So I started with that. And then we just started meeting in homes every month, once a month. And soon some of my other widow friends, because I have friends across the world because I have a podcast for widows. So I've met widows everywhere. And they said, how do we start a group? And so I just taught them. I made a Facebook group where I have videos and I teach them like how to get people together. What do you do? And they are part of my nonprofit. We just also launched in Australia. We're in Canada and continuing to grow. And so that was one part of it, was starting that. And then the other thing that our nonprofit does is retreats. We've had 3 retreats for widows. The last one was in October in Dallas, and we're going back to Dallas. I mean, sorry, it was last January. We're going back in October for our next one. We had 58 widowed women there. We had 72 registered, but there was this crazy snowstorm that came out of nowhere. So a lot of people canceled. Our 3-day retreat became 5 because we were snowed in, but God did
Oh no.
amazing things. Yeah, during that time. And then I also decided to create a program for churches because there's so few programs. And so I wrote a book called Widow Goals: Steps to Finding Peace When You Lose Your Spouse. It's basically 30 goals taken in any order that can help you, like get out of bed is the first chapter, call on your tribe, have an eternal perspective. I go into solo parenting, which is different than single parenting because we don't have another parent, and all kinds of topics. And then I created a workbook and a leader's guide. And so the point is, any church in the world could get this and start helping widows in their church. So that's a little bit about like what I started, what I do in my podcast. I'm about to celebrate the 5-year anniversary of that, and been able to connect with widows worldwide, which has been amazing. It's the only Christian widows podcast that I know about, and so that's a little bit about what I do.
I love that. I love what you said. And I love the idea of the podcast. I love you've kind of built out from,
Yeah.
was the podcast the first thing? Was that kind of where you started, or how did you?
Actually, TikTok, as strange as it sounds, I started like right when it was popular in 21, I believe. And I got some traction there that there were thousands of widows who just liked my little tips. And I was like, okay. And so, yeah, then I started the podcast with a widower. The two of us started it together. And it was very unique in that we had a widower with young kids and a widow with teenagers. And we just talked about life. It was like we were about a year into it and just started talking about that. And then he left about 3 years into the show, so I've been doing about 2 years without him, and I went mostly interview based now. And so now I interview widows and widowers literally across the world and hear their stories of how God helped them through it. It always has to end in like, okay, how did you get through it? We want to leave the audience with some hope. And so that's been an amazing way to connect with people. I mean, I've had people tell me they felt alone. They felt like they couldn't live until they found the podcast, and then they knew they weren't alone anymore. And so that's been very rewarding. I love doing the podcast and meeting all these amazing people and hearing their stories. And yeah, so I just feel like if I had to go through this, then I'm going to help other people. And so my entire career changed. I was a teacher before all this. I'm a teacher in a different way. I do grief coaching, and I do all kinds of things that I use the skills I learned in teaching, but I don't teach elementary anymore. I work from home and, work with widows all over the world. So I really enjoy it. A lot of times, like, God knows what our purpose is going to be. I never thought this was what my life would be, but I'm very thankful for where God has brought me and how I'm able to help widows, because there isn't a lot of help.
I love what you said too when we talked beforehand, is that a lot of churches don't have a program for
No, I
this.
don't.
And the thing that you said, which really hurt my heart and made me want to like really dive into this topic today, is that they lump them in with people that are divorced. Now,
Yes.
divorce is a traumatic
Yes.
experience, and I'm not
Right.
going to downplay that, but it's a different set of
It's totally
emotions, don't
different.
you think?
Oh, 100%. And that's something that widows do not like. If they say, I understand I'm divorced. No, it's not the same. I know that it's a huge loss. So I'm remarried and my current husband is divorced. And I know that's a huge grief. But what's mostly the biggest thing that's different is if you have kids, they still have their parent. And with divorce, they usually have the parent, but if you're widowed, they don't. There's no other parent. And so when somebody says that to me, I never say anything back, but I think, do your parent, your kids have their parents? Because if so, then, it's not the same. And it's just a whole different thing that we had absolutely zero say in this. And it's just a different world. And there's just something when you meet other widows, it's kind of like this invisible bond, kind of like when you meet other Christians. It's like that. So especially when I meet widows who are Christians, it's like this complete bond, because it's this experience we've been through. And there's just something like my best friends are widows, like all of them. And it's just amazing because we just get this life and what it's like in this journey. And then it's beautiful watching a lot of them get remarried, and not everybody does. And we respect whatever choice. But for me personally, I wanted to get remarried. And so that was a beautiful transition. But yeah, it's very sad. In churches, I have a fairly large Facebook group, and I posted something about my church let me give away my book and support widows. And I mean, the comments, there were hundreds of comments about, I left the church, nobody supported me. I didn't like being all alone. I felt so unseen. And I was so sad reading the comments that so many people had bad experience at church. And I know what that feels like, not having a widows group, going back to church, watching couples together. It was very difficult. You just feel very, very out of place, and everyone assumes that you are a single mom because you're divorced if they don't know you. And it's a hard place to be.
So, and maybe there's a new widow or widower, or I think we should just call them all widows. It just makes
That's
it
what I
easier.
do on my podcast. So
Yeah,
let's
it
just
just
say
makes
that.
it easier. I
Yep,
don't have to go through and define. But
exactly.
maybe there's somebody new that's newly widowed, and give them some advice besides
Mhm,
getting them plugged in with you, which we want to do. We want to use you
mhm.
as a resource for that. But give them some, let's say they're 3 4 months into this, what do they need to do, what, because you've now walked this road.
Mhm. Well, two things that I usually tell new widows: pour into healing like it's your job, because it really is. Because if you don't get healing, you're not going to be able to be good at anything. And so what does that look like? That means, I mean, you are actually taking steps, most likely getting counseling, getting grief counseling. I did everything, went to grief retreats, read every book. And then the other part of the healing is you cannot stuff it. So I have a saying that I say a lot in my book and in my podcast. It's what we feel, God can heal. Like if you don't feel it, it can't be healed. And that's not what God wants for us. He wants to heal us, but we have to go through the motion. So let's say you're a brand new widow and you're like, I'm not going to do anything. In a year, it'll be better. That's not true. It's like if you go to your car, you have a flat tire, and you say, I'll be back in a year. It'll be better. No, it won't unless you did the work. And that's the same with our grief. If you don't do the work, you're still going to be the same place. That was a new concept for me when I was widow, like, 6 months, a year out. I was feeling good. I was talking to people on TikTok and they're like, I'm 5 years out. I'm not any better. And I realized it's not the time, it's what you do with the time. And so your job as a new widow is to pour into your healing. And also part of that as Christians, for me, it was on my face crying before God, like, help me, help me, help me. And God has a special place in his heart for widows. He is a defender of widows and a father to the fatherless. I remember the first time I read that verse as a widow, and I was like, that's me and my kids. And know that God wants to heal you and he loves you and he hears every cry, And so for me, it was just pouring out to God all the time. And he really, really helped me and covered me with the peace that passes all understanding. And so it's really about feeling it, getting before God, turning on worship music, and just pouring into God, because there's all these other things that the world promises are going to make you feel better, but really he is the only way that you're going to feel better. There's lots of tools out there, but he's the only one who can actually heal your heart.
Amen. I love that. And something you said, which I find just it's a question I wanted to ask you. So you had, if I'm not mistaken, you said you had teenage children at the
Yes.
time.
Hmm.
So a lot of times when we think of widows, we think of them being older. How
Yep.
did you navigate that with your kids? How did I'm sure that was a process you had to walk through too. How did that go?
Different for each one of them. I prepared them. He had cancer, so it was a long battle, and we always prayed for his healing, but they knew that his healing might be in heaven. And so that, we were prepared, but still you're never prepared. But just walking through them, being very open with them about everything, talking about their dad constantly. We still talk about him, making it a safe environment for them to share whatever they're feeling. Letting them see me grieve was huge. A lot of parents think they have to hide it. No, you don't have to hide it. Let them see you. Now, you don't want to be falling apart all the time. And it depends on the ages of your kids and all of that. But my kids definitely saw me grieving. And it was a very hard journey. You have to enlist other people. Thankfully, I have a lot of family who was able to help me with my kids and friends, and and then providing counseling opportunities for them, and different things like that. But it's hard because I say when you're going through, you have kids and you're going through it, you have the grief, you're grieving your husband, but then you're grieving the father of your children, which are two different things. And so your heart breaks for your kids. I mean, that's why I'm 6 years out. My biggest grief is for my kids and the moments that their dad is missing, getting their licenses, graduations, going to college, all those things. The possibility of weddings in the future. That's the biggest grief for me right now. But yeah, a lot of people don't realize that widows are younger. I mean, I have friends that were widowed in their 20s. It's all different ages. It doesn't, there's a whole world out there I didn't know until I was widowed. And there's so many on Facebook. We connect there. And there's so many on all these social media platforms. And I'm so thankful to live in the time period that I do, because my best friends live all over the world and I met through technology. I have a friend, her mom was widowed, 25 years ago. And she's like, we didn't have what you guys have. Like, we were just the only young widows. We didn't know anyone else. But now, because of technology, even my local group were brought together through technology. I posted on Facebook, people send people to Facebook. And so I'm so thankful to be living in this time period, to be able to gather people and to support them.
I love what you just said about technology because it's so huge.
Yes.
But I do want to say something else because technology is great. Groups are great on Facebook, but I want people that are pastors, because you do have a program for churches.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about that because we want them to get in contact with you.
Yes, so in person is huge. I love my in person groups. So, what I've created with my book and workbook and leader's guide is a 12-week program to go through the entire book of Widow Goals that I talked about earlier. And within this, they're going to be working through things like grief basics. I mean, there's so much miseducation on grief. So, for instance, so the audience knows this, grief is not about stages like everyone thinks. So, Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross invented the stages of grief. grief, but they were for people dying, not for those grieving. And over time, it got misconstrued. So people can go research this and find that, see what I'm saying is true. And so grief instead comes in waves. It can come out of nowhere. Anyways, we go through grief basics. We go through having an eternal perspective. We go through how to go through their things, how to date again, if that's something you're interested in. We have solo parenting. I mean, just all kinds of things that you don't know how to do and you've never even thought about. And there's a whole section on who am I now? Because when you've been a wife or a husband for so many years and in a second you're not, it's a hard adjustment. And there's figuring out like, your identity. And so the program is designed that even, it's best led by a seasoned widowed, but if you don't have a widow in your church, anyone could get the leader's guide, and it tells you even the opening questions, even sample prayers, and then what to go through each week. And so I wanted there to be, we love Grief Share. That's a great program, but I wanted something specific for widows. Like, okay, you get this. This is specific to my what I'm going through, because I've had a lot of people tell me I like Grief Share, but I felt kind of alone. There weren't any widows, or there wasn't anyone around my age, or that kind of thing. And so I created this program, and I've had people around the country telling me they're doing it. I've got to pop in on some Zooms, because people have done it online as well. But really, my vision is that this is in churches across the world so that there's support, so that people don't feel alone and they have a place. And, like in my church, we're going to do it this fall as a community group, that meets once a month. I'm going to be leading it. And it's just something that's definitely needed. I mean, like I said, I searched everywhere and found nothing. And so I feel like God gave me this gift to put this all together so that there will be widows that are supported. And what we do in my widows group that meets once a month is when we hear of a new widow in the area, I bring cards to our events. We sign them for the new widows and we mail it to them with our phone number, with their information. And I saw this play out beautifully a few months ago. We did this with one of my friend's daughter-in-laws, and she texted me and said, I got your card. I can't tell you how much that means to me. I'll be at the next event. And she came, and then we were able to go to her husband's celebration of life and support her in that process. And that meant so much to her. And so, that's what I really want to see, is that we can support every widow, because it's such a lonely place. And when you feel like there's nobody who gets it, it's really hard. I had great support, great friends and family, but I needed somebody who understood it. And now that's something that we're able to provide.
Hey, Michelle, give everybody the website so they can plug
Widow
in with
Goals. So it's widowgoals.org, has everything I'm talking about. And widowgoals.org/support program has exactly what we're talking about. There's even a video for pastors on why we should have this in our church.
you. There you
And so
go.
what I tell people is just ask wherever you go to church, just ask your pastor, how do we support widows? It's a really good thing that we should be asking that we're not. And if you don't have a support program, tell them about this. And they can email me. My email's on there if they have any questions about how this works. What does it entail, all of that. But most of it's on the website. But everything, the podcast, the retreats, if you know someone who is widowed and wants to go to retreat, widowgoals.org has everything we're talking about.
That is awesome. Michelle, we'll have you back on again. I love
great.
this because there's so much to talk about, but I appreciate you, and they can plug in with you. And we need, how many times did you say again in the Bible it mentions it?
103, depending
a
on the
lot.
translation, but I think that's NIV, 103.
That's close. I mean, that's good. And
Yeah.
it's something we need. Michelle, great having you on. We'll have you on again. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for being with us this morning. Wow, where's the time gone? It went by way too fast. What an interesting topic. And I have to tell you, I was ignorant. And I didn't think of that until today, even. But man, appreciate each and every one of you. Hey, thanks for taking part of your morning out with us. And now it's time for you to get back to work. Bottom line, boss is going to get mad if you don't, but you've had your morning break.